All right, and so we're back. Welcome to episode number two of this first campaign. So we just recently got out of our battle. We did do some organizational changes. As you see there, George McClellan was the highest ranking major general. So part of the command rules are to do some of those updates. We can forcibly retire anybody that's over the age of 60. So we have been doing that and putting them into assignments on various forts. That way, they're kind of out of the officer pool. You don't have to deal with the AI choosing them to join the battle from that standpoint. And really, that's kind of where we're at right now. So, our first order of business is to really figure out if we can get John Pope here down to Charleston to really take the rest of Virginia. Western Virginia. If we can do that, it really eliminates the AI's ridiculous desire to focus solely on protecting West Virginia. So we're going to do that as quickly as possible. Other than that, there's not a whole lot that we're going to be able to do right now. We're waiting on troops to get to their armies. We may go ahead and let Lion down here go ahead and push forward. Real life, we know it doesn't go very well, but maybe we can have a little bit more luck than he did. We'll probably wait until he gets that readiness up, though. He is in that kind of supply desert. We do have a supply station here at Rolla, but if he can push forward and get into Carrollton, we can build a supply station and really be safe from that standard. I guess we should probably look at our fleets real quick. They're all working on getting a variety of improvement. So between our fleets, we're going to go ahead and start building some more ships. As you see, we currently are not utilizing anything, it looks like. We got some ships to work with, but we're going to start going ahead and building a variety of ironclads if we can. Timberclad, tinclads, ironclads. Our hope here is to be able to completely crush all the river fleets of the Confederacy and be able to really blockade the heck out of them. We'll also go up here and get some second-rate steamers. They work in a pinch to help kind of extend that blockade. And then we'll go ahead and add, let's see here, a group of sidewheel frigates. They're actually quite powerful. They move pretty well, so by having those, it'll put us over capacity of what our fleet can our ports can actually build, but it'll keep them busy, and we got some ships that'll be finishing up here shortly. As we get readiness up here, we'll go ahead and start the game. As readiness starts coming back, we'll start setting them to blockade. As you see, the newspapers aren't real thrilled with us for losing that battle. That is realistic. But we do know that they also took more losses than us, realistically. So as McClellan falls back and gaining command of this army, we'll really start looking and seeing whether or not his former army, the Army of Occupation, is able to get to Charleston, West Virginia and take it. That'll be a key piece here. If we can take that, it will keep things a little bit better because the AI won't get so focused on Western Virginia. Realistically, Western Virginia doesn't really break off until later on. There was a push early on in the war to create this as a state, and obviously it is now, but It's not really July of 1861 where it happens, but if we can trigger that, it does prevent the AI from sending thousands upon thousands of reinforcements in there. Like I said, we really won't be able to do a whole lot until after we get our readiness up in a lot of places, which in most cases is due to the fact of not having troops. Said we're being blockaded. Hope has arrived. If he can take it before the army of Kanawha decides to attack him, that would be fantastic. They don't really have a bunch of troops right now, but it looks like they've got a bunch on the way. It's like this up here. You've got the army of Shenandoah already trying to move into Western Virginia. They're about to come down to Grafton to try to take it before I can take Charleston. They, for some reason, love to do that. I guess the AI considers it to be part of their own territory, so I guess it makes sense, but really it doesn't, on the other hand, because it just seems outrageous. We are going to have the Army of Kentucky and Bull Nelson push here on the Army of Eastern Tennessee. They're similar sized, and if we can take Knoxville, that's another historically Union-leaning part of the state. There's no objective for it in this game, but it's kind of a realistic thought process there where if the Union had an opportunity to do anything with that, they would have. Fort Monroe's being bombed, so we'll go ahead and go into patrol there. Try to get them to engage. We'll go a little bit closer. There's supposed to be a blockading squad, but well, if I could click anything, that would be helpful. We'll go ahead and get McClellan back across. It looks like the Confederates are starting to move to really get a bunch of different groups over here and potentially hit them while they're not ready. As we're looking at our finances, we're going to focus on politics and military here. The rest are all pretty helpful. We'll start working on agriculture a little higher. Economy, we need to potentially have that improved credit rating option. Diplomacy, yeah, there's not a whole lot we're going to do with the diplomacy option. Industry, that works for right now. See how we're doing in Charleston. We've almost taken it. Somehow we cut through the woods and the mountains there and avoided the Army of Kanawha. We still only have 2,400, so even if they decide to make a push quickly for Western Virginia, we should be able to get it to flip. And there we go. We're going to go ahead and set these guys to blockade. It looks like we did get West Virginia to break apart. That's huge success here early on. Obviously, it's a huge success for real life because it takes a lot of power away from Confederacy, but also from the game standpoint because now those units should move back into actual Virginia and stop trying to come across the mountain passes. That should actually help Virginia's state support based on some play testing. That's kind of one of the things that goes very badly if they don't have Virginia or West Virginia completely change there. So we're going to be doing a little bit with our blockades here. To the blockade out here in the middle of nowhere, we are going to move them to the edge of the blockade down south. So really blockading mainly Jacksonville. And then I think if I remember right, there is a need for a blockade potentially in the Carolinas. Looks like we've got all the ports covered on the East Coast. We could use probably one more blockade down here in the south. Guess we've got most of those covered. Sabine Pass is kind of open, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and start assigning some of these ships over. My expectation is that this episode's going to be a little bit slower, getting kind of everything organized, set up. So we will go ahead and step away a little bit and bring you back as things start kind of heating up. So as you can see here, we did move some ships around to try to increase these blockades a little bit. Hopefully, well, if it's going to let me see, hopefully we can get those blockades up and cranked out here. That way we can really kind of impact the Southern cause. So the next house rule that we really have to get into here is kind of our reinforcements. So one of the house rules that we have, and again, you can find them on Discord, or if you need a link, we can add those to the description below. But we're going to turn off reinforcements when we are not in winter quarters. So that basically means until you get to the middle of October, maybe even November, we are not going to allow any reinforcements. Sometimes there is a bug, so hopefully it doesn't happen, but sometimes there is where once you turn it off, you cannot turn it back on, and they will never get reinforced. So hopefully that's not the case here. But what we're hoping for is it's going to allow for our troops' strength sizes to really decrease, and that way we're kind of really working with brigades at a strength level that is impacted by the war and not just constantly at max capacity. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it works out that way. If not, well, I guess we'll find out. So we'll just have to go through and do that real quick. As you see, we're kind of packed full of troops all over the place, so we really don't need a bunch of reinforcements right now. We will probably have to do some combining of some units and whatnot with some of those smaller regimental size, but that'll be after we do some army reorganization and more realistic to what McClellan probably really does in most of the Eastern Theater in most of the winter of 1861. So we'll be able to pick the speed up a little bit. Now that we have West Virginia, that should make things a little more interesting. Bull Nelson down there has gotten a little bit of Kentucky back under control. That's something we're really going to have to keep an eye on here is this unit. Sometimes the Confederacy makes a run for Louisville and Covington early on. We'll see if they do or not here. Nathaniel Lyon, who, again, historically dies here very quickly in comparison to where we're at. We may have a battle coming that direction here soon. Our credit rating is actually going up right now, so that's exciting. About 13.5 days away from being able to get some more troops packed in, some longer contracts. We are going to try to wait for green readiness in most cases. There'll be some cases where we can't wait, but it's really what we're going to be trying to focus on here is try to allow for true green or upper level yellow readiness. So we'll bring you back as some things start transpiring. So as we bring you back here, not a whole heck of a lot's going on here in early August. As you see, our troop numbers are starting to dwindle down. That's partially due to those one-year contracts or those early 3-month contracts starting to run out. So we're looking right now, we're about even with the Confederate Army. We're still in obviously mid-August, but we do have a first initial goal out of the way with taking West Virginia. The second goal was to try to expand that blockade, which we have. The entire East Coast, every single port that they have is completely, at this point, blockaded. Our efficiency level is not great, but we do have blockades everywhere. With the exception of, it looks like Sabine Pass might just slightly be out of our range. We might need another blockading fleet down that direction. But what you can see here is we got the Army of the West and Lyon. We're going to go ahead and start marching him to Carrollton. Now we know, just from playing the game, that there's actually probably right around this area 2 rebel armies. We've also got Bull Nelson here in Tennessee, who's got about the same force size as the rebels there, and he's going to start marching towards Knoxville. It's got a lot of Union support there historically. Naval engagement happening out here outside of Charleston, Savannah. looks like we should have this one pretty well in hand unless something crazy happens. Well, we did just have something crazy happen. One of our bigger ships, the Jamestown, just blew up. That doesn't help. But it looks like we have, for the most part, whooped the Savannah squadron. We captured a couple ships. We'll jump in real quick and send those back to port. Let them get rebuilt a little bit with probably the USS Daylight and let them go back to continue blockading. Get some of those damaged ships out of there. And just kind of what we were expecting there in the Cumberland Gap. We do have a little bit of an engagement getting ready to take place. It'll be a quick and small one, but we'll bring you back for the start of the battle. So we've got the Cumberland Gap with the Poor Valley Ridge as the victory location or the objective. Um, Nelson's force is just under 4,000 men, and inside that, we've got 4 artillery batteries. As you can see, that is a good sizable chunk of his men, about 500 cavalry, and then 2 brigades of, well, Kentucky and East Tennessee, which is kind of the purpose of this fight. Trying to see if we can punch down just a little bit to get into Eastern Tennessee and kind of get those sympathetic to the Confederacy to get kind of out of there. And realistically, we'd be able to draw some decent number of recruits from Tennessee to where the game would work there. We would get a decent little bit. I believe our support would kind of start reaching the point of being close. Might take a couple other smaller victory locations, but would be close. This obviously is a map that does kind of simulate that Cumberland Gap feeling. You know, you've got mountains all over the place, giant forests, trees, pretty much uninhabited area. And we're going to have to punch through not just the mountain gap, but then the ridge gap as well to make it to the victory point. You zoom in, the detail here is pretty good. We're going to have to punch through really, really far, realistically knowing that there's about 4,000 men somewhere around here. If I was making my stand, it would probably be right here along the Wilderness Road and the Cumberland Gap. You would think that that's probably the most defendable position there is. So we'll go ahead and start letting our men start working that direction. Now, because this battle is marked as it was in Kentucky, we might avoid some of the penalty for fighting on enemy land. Our fighting spirit is pretty high, so we might actually benefit from that a lot more than you typically would here if this fight would have been marked as being in Tennessee. Would have been the same map and the same battle, but just slightly being on this side of the border might allow for us to, realistically, I guess the border would be right between there, but it would maybe allow our fighting spirit to be higher, which gives us a little bit of a morale boost. We send our cavalry up through the pass. We'll get kind of more in an organized line here. Uh, right now, we're very disorganized and chaotic, so trying to organize that a little bit. It won't be a true battle line, but what we will have is kind of more of a marching column, which should allow for our troops not to get stuck up in the mountains and get exhausted just from the mountains, as you see Wolford's cavalry was kind of doing just with the AI pathing. We'll let him go ahead and keep pushing forward. He is disrupted and tired already. Um, that's not helpful. That he does have the carbines though, so he could do okay in a basic quick shootout, but probably not going to last very long. Okay, and he spotted the rebel defenses, and they're not actually on the wilderness road, but they are just on the edge of the ridge here. Looks like they've got some fortifications started, but haven't actually started building them. Looks like they've thought about it. Oh, we did put him into artillery range. Okay, so we'll get Nelson up here with his whole division, or I guess Army of Kentucky. We're seeing Carroll's brigade and the Knoxville brigade, about 1,600 men, and then two cavalry brigades from Tennessee also. Um, these two batteries. So it looks like it should be a fair fight if we can avoid getting shot up by the artillery too bad on our approach up. And again, it does show that there is that fence there, but what we know is that they are not actually behind cover. So we could be in decent shape there. Can our artillery hit their artillery? That's the question. Looks like maybe. We've already had one artillery rout. So what we're going to do is, as best we can, push our troops up as far as possible to more or less assault that position. Slow it down here so we don't take mass fire extremely quickly where the game glitches out and does nothing but shoot. And we'll try to get into an assaulting stance because we're going to have to assault it. They're not in great defensive position, but they're in a defensive position that's going to be difficult to break through. We could turn that flank, and it looks like that's what Nelson's going for. As you see here, it looks like he's trying to get the cavalry up on their cavalry. Looks like we've routed one of their batteries. That'll help. Do we have any batteries left? Ours look like they're struggling. Look at Nelson rallying. Oh, he has pulled those troops back and no longer wants to hit that flank. Looks like he's trying to get out of range of this artillery gun. But I think all he's doing is putting himself in more fire there. So we do have an assaulting stance, but right now he's not. Maybe doesn't trust that he's got the numbers here. He has set up a bombardment. Oh, there's a hidden rebel brigade up here. It's gonna make things a little more complicated. Looks like he ordered the cavalry to make a hard push on the flank. Yeah, we are seeing Walthall has a brigade in here somewhere. So there's a third infantry brigade that we were unaware of. Well, let's see how this cavalry unit does. Nelson, are we going to support him? No, we're not. We're going to let the cavalry run up and get slaughtered. Awesome. Let's at least try to dismount them and throw them into loose order and hope that that gives us a little bit of help. Of course, just doing that's gonna get us shot at. Get the horses out of the way. Why are we facing the wrong direction? Oh, that's not good. There we go. Now we've at least gotten off the horses. Finally facing the right direction. They're firing, but not very well. And there they go. They break. And just like that, we have suffered defeat. Well, that's unhelpful. So Nelson is going to have to withdraw back into Kentucky. Bull Nelson, one of the famous Union generals that was killed in a duel. By Jefferson Davis, actually, not the President Jefferson Davis of the Confederacy, the general. Got into an argument with Nelson, and they had a duel and killed him. Does not appear Nelson is going to win this battle. So we only inflicted 30 casualties, only took 90, but we were forced back out of the Cumberland Gap. And that'll probably end our advance into eastern Tennessee for the foreseeable future. So now that we've made it back to the campaign screen, we'll see that Wolford was actually disgraced for that. So we're going to have to go and replace him as part of our house rules. So it should be a quick and easier replacement, but that way everybody can kind of see how that's going to work. So we'll replace Wolford with, we're going to pick Kentucky here and look for the first unassigned member of Kentucky. So it'll be Edward H. Hobson, who does have 2 stars of experience already, but he's a volunteer, so he won't be promoted until his 3rd star of experience. And we'll go back to a little quicker there with the game. Let's see where Nelson's going to retreat to. No, just where we're at there, we're going to need to retreat a little farther. But in the meantime, here comes battle for Wilson's Creek over on the border of Missouri and Arkansas. So should be for kind of access into Carrollton there and the giant supply desert that is this region. If we can get down into Carrollton, we have a good chance to take most of Arkansas very quickly. So we'll be here in the map looking to try to get to Greeley Road. We did not actually get the Wilson's Creek map here. It looks like we made it just far enough south of that map. So as you look at the terrain here, we're going to have to go through Greeley Mountain in some way, shape, or form. We'll probably approach here through Deweyville, and then it's really a matter of which road do we take. I would assume this is the shorter path, but if we look here, there's already that fence built in. We might have to go around the back side here and try to flank them. Maybe we do what Lion did realistically at Wilson's Creek and split half and half. Let's go ahead and get into it. We'll march up here to Deweyville to start with, see what we can see. If we can't see anything, we may try to split our forces just because of that mountain passes. You're not going to be able to really flank anybody here. You got a mountain on each side, or well, a mountain on one side and a valley with some woods there on the other. And it is pouring down rain. Well, I guess light rain. And one of our house rules that if it is raining severely, then we will have to even slow our movement down twice as much. So we'll speed up here. Clearly, we've got Confederate courier that we shouldn't be able to see, but we saw. See, I think that's what we'll go ahead and do is kind of follow the maneuver that Lion really did. It didn't go well for him in real life. Obviously with him ending up dead at the Battle of Wilson's Creek, but he split his army and had a good chance until reinforcements showed up. He did kind of have an opportunity. The Lion, controversial guy, the more you read into him, um, you know, with the massacres on Native Americans and a variety of different places. You've also got the shooting of civilians around Camp Jackson in Missouri. So, he's a controversial guy from that standpoint, where he was doing all these things to support the Union cause and all the things he was doing for the Army, but also, some things that are kind of looked differently upon from a historical sense than they were in 1860. So as this army is marching, they're taking their time. Clearly, it's rough terrain, and you've got a little bit of rain. But from the sense of what goes on in Missouri, even though we lost the Battle of Wilson's Creek and died, um, he did actually pretty significantly impact the rebel attempt to advance into Missouri. Forced them to kind of fall back into Arkansas for the most part and wait until, you get the Battle of Pea Ridge later on. But it does kind of secure Missouri for the Union despite losing the battle. So, of course, our first unit is currently led by Franz Siegel, another guy with a checkered life. Led a revolution in Germany and ended up in the United States as a teacher, and then ended up beyond there taking control of a lot of different things. So as you see there, we are moving our cavalry uh, by Eugene Carr all the way around. Try to at least see what's back here. I'm not sure if we're going to actually flank like we were thinking. We'll go with Dietzler, Andrews. Yeah, we will go ahead and send a couple units that direction. Steele and Ulsterhouse, Plummer with Carr, and then we'll have these three brigades coming from the front side with our artillery led by Totten. So that should give us a reasonable opportunity to flank a bigger force than us. Sorry, I forgot to click that off prior to. Carr still hasn't spotted anybody, and he's quite a ways ahead. Later game you can start getting scouts out. Realistically, maybe now, but 437 troops kind of defeats the purpose to send a bunch of scouts out with 437 troops. Um, we do have mountain split as of right now. It is getting later in the day, and my assumption is that even if we split the mountain, it's going to make us come all the way back together. So we're going to let Dietzler, who's got the biggest brigade, go first, followed by the others. Car's still got nobody in front of him, so that's interesting. Let's get him up to that fence line. Let's get Osterhouse and Steele up here. We do have some regulars here, so despite it being their first battle, it's the frustrating part there is you would hope that those guys being regular army would be able to get off of that buff, but does not appear so. Well, looks like they are dug in on the ridge line. Siegel, Andrews, and Dietzler start pushing forward. We will slow down quite substantially now that we are getting into contact. Looks like we have also found the rear of the Missouri State Guard with Carr. So over here you got the Arkansas Army, or I guess it's called the Western Army officially. And then you got the Missouri State Guard. So the AI did not split them up and put them all basically back to back. Should make it even more complicated to try to split. Sometimes you get lucky and they'll split them up a little bit because it's two different armies, but doesn't appear so. So we'll stick line on an attack, not an assault. We just tried that and it didn't work well in Kentucky. So let's try just regular attack here. See if we can get this battery up. My fear is by putting him onto attack will cause these troops to try to march all the way around to get to him. So I didn't detach them ahead of time. And that'll frustrate me, but it is what it is. Alright, line. Are we going to push forward? Let's see. It looks like he's still issuing the order to move to the attack. It is also 7 o'clock already, so we may luck out here and be able to regroup now that we know where everybody's at. But we are definitely outnumbered right now, at least by brigades. I'm not sure strength-wise, but 100% brigades. Based on our pre-battle intelligence, we are definitely outnumbered strength-wise. So trying to get formed up back there to try to hit the rear of the enemy. Maybe line will start issuing orders to do things. It looks like he's still delayed on just getting into an attack stance, which you would think wouldn't take that long with just one man as the chain of command here, but I guess when you do have brigades all the way out this direction, regiments out this direction, you're gonna take a little bit longer. Only a couple of batteries firing at me right now. But it looks like they've wiped out one of ours. Man, Lion is still trying to issue that order of attack. So what we'll go ahead and do is help him out a little bit and push Dietzler forward just a little. Try to at least engage the enemy on this side, which should allow for our flanking attack to maybe not draw as much attention. Yeah, see, there we go. We've got the enemy starting to spin around here, but, well, are they marching or are they spinning to engage the rear attack? Looks like Lion has finally decided to start issuing orders. Oh, that's my fear with that. Because you're now going to have those guys marching over Mount Greeley. Hopefully along the way they were able to flank, kind of like how we're doing right now with Carr. Um, that's really not what you want to be doing there, guys. You really don't want to just take cannons to the face. And they're broken. Alright. At least maybe we drew some attention there for a little while, which will allow these regiments. I guess this is marked as a brigade, but it's 573 men. It may as well be the same size as a regiment. George Anderson, or George Andrews, not Anderson. Wrong army. That's a brigade pushing forward. And they are getting just slaughtered up close up there. Now they punched into enemy defenses, square on. It's not going really well. See if we can get Osterhaus to at least hit that from the rear. Andrews is just getting shredded right now. I'm shocked that the AI had enough to dig in early in the war like this. It's gonna make for a it's not the second time we've seen them do that. I don't think Andrews is gonna last much longer. Just getting torn apart right now. And we got a wounded. It's probably him. Yep, it is. So we got Siegel coming up. The Osterhaus going for the rear of their defenses. Andrews, who just got wounded in our battle, really only participated in the Battle of Wilson's Creek, and then he mustered out. He was one of those early mustered out and then got reassigned to fort duty up in Maine. So he spent most of his Civil War up in Maine after the Battle of Wilson's Creek. Looks like Osterhaus's undersized brigade was able to push the Louisiana out. Our regulars are coming up and trying to punch above their weight. At this point, we need to get Dietzler's guns up there as well. Trying to get Steele to come take pressure off of Siegel's men that are just getting torn apart by this canister here. Man, early game entrenchments are very difficult.